We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Divers recover bodies after a Tanzanian ferry disaster. Mauritanian president says he will not modify the constitution. Clashes on Gaza-Israel border erupt following a demonstration. Freeland says Team Canada approach is a strength in NAFTA talks. Tornado batters area near Canadian capital Ottawa. Alberta's peculiar weather. Plus, Monster Jam in Calgary, Alberta. This is Eagle News Canada, bringing you stories from around the globe. I am Arnie Aquino. Divers recover bodies in Tanzania after Thursday's ferry capsized on Lake Victoria that killed at least 131 people.
Nishukuru kwamba karibu maiti nyingi zinajulikana. Ukiangalia sura hazijaribika. Kwa hiyo tumeshajipanga ili baada ya muda mfupi tutaanza kufanya zoezi la wananchi waweze kutambua miili yao ili kuweza kutengeneza utaratibu tuende kuwastiri wenzetu ambao wamepoteza maisha kutokana na hii ajali.
Tanzanian President John Magufuli on Friday ordered the arrest of the management of a ferry that capsized in Lake Victoria as the death toll climbed to 131 and rescue workers pressed on with the search to find scores more people feared drowned. According to reports on state media, the MV Nyerere may have been carrying as many as 200 passengers, double the ferry's capacity, when it capsized close to the pier on Ukara Island on Thursday. Witnesses said the ferry sank when passengers rushed to one side to disembark as it approached the dock. The president declared 4 days of national mourning while saying at least 131 people had died, updating an earlier death toll of 126. Magufuli also announced the government would cover the funeral expenses of the victims. Mwanza Governor John Mongella had earlier said the number of survivors was 40, but it was unclear whether any new survivors have been found since rescue operations resumed with police and army divers on Friday morning. State television cited witnesses reporting that more than 200 people had boarded the ferry at Bugolora, a town on the larger Ukerewe Island, where it was a market day when locals said the vessel was usually packed with people and goods.
Kata kona ya kasi. Baada ya kukata kona ya kasi kulikuwa na kenta yenye mizigo ikawa imeanguka upande ambao ilipomaliza kuanguka haikurudi tena kwa mitakaa sawa. Magunia pia ya mahindi nayo yakaporomoka kikageuka jumla ikalifunika.
Kulikuwa na makireti ya bia, majunia, gari na nyanya zilikuwemo. Sasa sisi baadaye tukawa tumekaa juu kwenye majunia, mimi na dadangu na wengine. Sasa badala ya kukaa hapo juu nimekuja kushutua, mimi ndio wa kwanza kudondoka kwenye maji na mwingine naye akanifuata, kuna mama hivi na mtoto.
It remains unclear how many people are still missing. Tanzania's Electrical, Mechanical and Services Agency, which is responsible for ferry services, said it was unknown how many passengers were aboard the MV Nyerere, the aging ferry whose hull and propellers were all that remained visible after it overturned, was also carrying cargo, including sacks of maize, banana and cement, when it capsized around 50 meters from Ukara dock. The cause of the accident was not immediately clear, but overloading is frequently to blame for such incidents. The country's opposition has accused the governments of negligence. Russian President Vladimir Putin and the leaders of Uganda and Kenya offered their condolences, while Pope Francis in the statement expressed the greatest solidarity with those who have been bereaved by the disaster. With a surface area of 70,000 square kilometers, oval-shaped Lake Victoria is roughly the size of Ireland and is shared by Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. Capsizes are not uncommon in the massive lake, and the number of fatalities is often high due to a shortage of life jackets and the fact that many people in the region cannot swim. The deadliest such accident in recent decades was in May 1996, when around 800 people died after their ferry sank on the way to Mwanza in Tanzania. Mauritania President Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz says he will not amend the constitution that prevents him from running for a third term. He was speaking during a press conference after his ruling party swept legislative municipal, and local elections, according to final results in a key test before a presidential poll 7 months away.
Personnellement, je ne toucherai pas à la Constitution. Ça, je l'ai dit, je l'ai répété à plusieurs reprises.
The Union for the Republic Party of President Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz won an additional 22 seats in Saturday's runoff vote, bringing its majority to 89 in the 157-seat parliament.
Si j'ai quitté le pouvoir, que je ne vais pas baliser une autoroute pour les gens qui étaient là, qui ont détruit la Mauritanie, qui l'ont déstabilisée. تعيّن لكم حكم الشعب الموريتاني. لا فيه مفاجأة. وفي استمرارية اللي موحول فيه بصفة عامة، استمرارية اللي موحول فيه في ذا البلد، المنهج والرؤية وذا كامل لا يتم متابعة.
It won all 13 regional councils, which have replaced the Senate under a constitutional reform, the National Election Commission said. The UPR also bagged 162 of the 219 communes up for grabs. The first round was held on September 1st. The West African nation is a frontline state in the fight against Islamist extremists. The so-called radical opposition won 29 parliamentary seats, of which 14 were for the Islamist Tawassul party. 10 others went to moderate opposition parties. Tawassul only won 5 communes. Mohamed Val Ould Belal, the head of the poll commission, admitted there were gaps in the election but hailed the winds of modernity sweeping over the national political scene. 61-year-old Aziz, who came to power in a coup in 2008, won elections in 2009 and again in 2014 for a second 5-year term. He has been frequently accused by opposition figures and NGOs of rights abuses, and though he says he will not seek a third mandate, which would be against the Constitution, statements by ministers and supporters have led some to suggest that he might. Palestinian protesters clashed with Israeli forces after a demonstration along the Israeli border fence east of Gaza City. The health ministry in the Hamas-controlled territory said a Palestinian was killed by Israeli fire in new clashes along the Gaza border. A spokesman for the ministry said the man, whose identity was not yet known, was killed during protests east of Gaza City. The spokesman said more than 100 other people were wounded. Palestinians have been demonstrating along the border for months, and often violent protests that have seen at least 185 Palestinians killed by Israeli fire since March 30th. One Israeli soldier has been killed by a Palestinian sniper. It was reported that Friday's clashes were more ferocious than in recent weeks. The Israeli army said more than 10,000 people had gathered in several locations along the border on Friday evening. It added that its forces were responding with live fire in accordance with standard operating procedures. Up next, Freeland says Team Canada approach is a strength in NAFTA talks. Tornado batters area near Canadian capital Ottawa. Alberta's peculiar weather. Eagle News Canada will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News Canada. Canada's Foreign Minister, Chrystia Freeland, says the Team Canada approach in our country has been a strength during NAFTA negotiations as she speaks to journalists following a meeting with her counterpart U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer in Washington, D.C.
I am paid in Canadian dollars. U.S. legislators are paid in American dollars. It is my job to stand up for the national interest. That's what we've done from day one, and that is what we are going to continue to do.
According to a readout of the call, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, in a telephone call with U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday, reaffirmed his commitment to a deal that works for both countries. Freeland was scheduled to meet with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer at 11 a.m. to try to hammer out a deal to revamp the North American Free Trade Agreement, which she said last week after a round of tense talks was eminently possible.
Our officials reported back on the very hard work they've been doing over the past few days, including, as I mentioned, one overnight session for one of the teams this last night that just ended at 7 o'clock this morning, we commiserated with the negotiators who were in that meeting. They were all pretty tired, but in good spirits.
Negotiations to modernize the 1994 accord between Canada, the United States, and Mexico started a year ago at the behest of President Trump, who called it one of the worst trade deals in history for sending many manufacturing jobs, notably in the auto sector, to Mexico. The United States and Mexico sealed their own two-way deal at the end of August, and Trump has since ramped up pressure on Canada to accept his terms. But Ottawa has seemed reluctant to heed Trump's push to sign a deal before U.S. midterm elections in November and the transfer of power in December to Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador. As Trudeau's Liberals also need a win to hold up to voters when they return to the polls in 1 year. Stumbling blocks to a deal remain, including over Canada's protected dairy sector and cultural subsidies, as well as its demand for an international system for resolving disputes.
There's now more work for our officials to do. They have been set those tasks. They'll be doing that work, and then Ambassador Lighthizer and I will meet again later this afternoon.
A tornado sparks chaos near the Canadian capital, Ottawa, injuring dozens as homes were damaged, cars flipped over, and over 130,000 people are left without power. Meteorologists reported gusts whipped up to around 120 miles per hour, with the city of Gatineau, about 5 miles north of the capital, taking the brunt. Images on social media showed homes with damaged rooftops as debris was seen swirling through the air in video footage. Ottawa Emergency Services official Anthony Dumont told local media around 30 people were injured, 5 seriously. Meanwhile, electricity company Hydro-Quebec reported over 130,000 customers were without power in the Ottawa area on Friday evening. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau urged residents to check on neighbors who might need help. A weather alert was put in place Friday afternoon for all of southern Ontario and Quebec. Winds eased by the time they reached Greater Montreal, which was hit heavy by rains but escaped major damage. Although it is still technically summer in Edmonton, Eagle News correspondent Thomas Likeness shows us how winter arrived early, bringing snow to the city. Here's the report.
According to the calendar, it's still summer. Fall isn't until September 22nd, but here I am brushing snow off my truck. Since the beginning of September, people in northern Alberta have been enduring below-average temperatures and rain mixed with snow. Temperatures have been hovering near the freezing point, and because of cloud cover, we don't see much sunshine. It's just plain miserable. Normally, temperatures in this part of the province would be in the low to mid-teens. Harvesting of crops has been delayed, and grain farmers worry if there's much more snow, crops will be damaged, which translates into less money for lower quality grain. But there may be cause for optimism. A couple of the signs of winter that have not yet been noticed: there are no flocks of migratory birds in the sky flying south to warmer climates. And the fur on rabbits turns white when winter is about to set in so they can better hide from predators. As you can see, this little guy is still wearing his summer colors. According to the Weather Network, it will be the last week of September before things return to normal. Despite the cool temperatures and snow, it's still better than many parts of the world where they're experiencing weather calamities. Enjoying the last few days of summer in Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
Thank you, Thomas. Coming up, Eagle News will take us to Monster Jam. Eagle News Canada will return shortly. This is Eagle News Canada. I am Arnie Aquino. Eagle News correspondent Tiffany Alassasis takes us to Monster Jam, a live motorsport event in Calgary. Tiffany?
Big tires, big truck, and a huge suspension. Everyone, welcome to the Monster Jam.
Operated by Flood Entertainment, Monster Jam is a live motorsport event tour that takes place from different countries across Europe, Australia, Asia, Central America, and the Middle East. The show usually starts with an early access to the pit, which they call Pit Party. During this time, fans can access the pit where trucks will battle it out for the event. Fans and drivers will have a chance to get up close and personal and get autographs and pictures taken. There are also memorabilia like clothing, flags, toys, and other merchandises sold at this event. Brandon Vincent, the driver of Gravedigger, shared with us the feeling of a first-time driver for this event.
I feel good, to be able to come out here in Calgary at the Stampede and drive Gravedigger and put on an awesome show for all of the fans here. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rip the track up.
After the pit party, the show will start with all the different trucks participating on a few events and showcase a winner. Overall, Monster Jam is a fun-filled event for everyone from different ages and walks of life.
Reporting from Stampede Grandstand here in Calgary, Canada, I am Tiffany Alisasas, and I am 1 with 25.
Thanks, Tiffany. That is this week's Eagle News Canada. Join us next week for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and Eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Arnie Aquino. I am 1 with 25.